I love when people message me and say that they're on a road trip and they've been like binge listening to our podcast and just learning so much. And other people are like, I take notes.
I feel like we received so much favor so early on where we had people that we respect in the industry giving us such positive reviews and feedback. And that was really encouraging.
This is the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast, helping filmmakers who share a Christian worldview stay in touch, informed, and inspired. Quiet on set. Rolling. Today's host is Matt Chastain.
All right, welcome to the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. My name is Matt Chastain. I am a guest host of sorts. I'll be coming to you guys and kind of sharing the mic with our good friends Jaclyn and Geoffrey, and I am just honored to be a part of this. Go back from the last episode, if you heard the 99th episode, we had talked about how I was a guest on one of the first podcasts, and I just had so much fun that they let me come back and put me behind the mic to co-host with them. But this, ladies and gentlemen, we are extremely excited. This is the 100th episode of the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. It seems like, Geoffrey and Jaclyn, that usually to get to 100 episodes, you should have been doing this 2 or 3 years, but you've been doing it like 7 or 8 minutes. I don't know how you guys have done it. So congratulations. I see smiles on your face. I wish this was a video version because they're smiling ear to ear. They know what they've accomplished, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Well, how does it feel? How does it feel to have put this much work in and to achieve this kind of a milestone? And by the way, you're not just producing podcasts and putting them out in the ether and no one's enjoying them. Like, you're getting lots and lots of downloads, but more importantly, people within the industry that, I want to say the heavy hitters, but the people who we all look up to as the best actors and producers and directors, they're tuning in, they're listening. They enjoy. I heard Miss Peggy Shaw talking about just the other day. If she's in the car or on a run, she's listening. People like her are listening. So you guys have put this thing together, and it's actually 100 episodes in, and it's doing what you hoped it would do and what you prayed it would do.
Yeah, exactly. I love when people message me and say that they're on a road trip and they've been like binge listening to our podcast and just learning so much. And other people are like, I take notes.
I feel like we received so much favor so early on where we had people that we respect in the industry giving us such positive reviews and feedback. And that was really encouraging.
Yeah, the support's been amazing and like surprising in some ways because we kind of just got onto the scene and all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're here. And I mean, people could have easily been like, yeah, well, we'll see what happens in a couple months. Because, when people pursue something all excited, passion can easily wane. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not to hop on my Southern Baptist pulpit, but when you submit to the will of God and become a vessel for His light to shine, it is kind of amazing how each and every time blessings flow. So praise God, from whom?
And it's a passion. I'm guessing most people don't realize how much effort and work it takes. But there are definitely hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours that have been put into it.
Yeah.
Probably, if we averaged everything out, it's probably 3 days a week of one person's work. Right now, where we have not been doing a lot of recording in the last few months because we do them in batches.
Right.
We do about 6 months worth over about a 2-month span where we're doing the interviews. And then the rest of the time, I'm still doing probably about close to 2 days a week, just editing and doing the work to publish.
And this is community service. You guys are not, a podcast like this is not going to bring in enough money to put the food on the table. So I want everybody to know this is a public service. So thanks to you guys for what you're doing because we enjoyed the fruits of your unpaid for labor, so to speak.
Well, there's no reason for it to be a secret. It's been probably a little under $250 in revenue from it since we began in February. And of course, the expenses, the platforms and so on that we're paying subscriptions are way higher than that. So yeah, it's not a net gain for us.
Welcome to Christian filmmaking.
Right? Well, but I think
there's benefits.
Yeah. So this is part of it is stepping away from what the world decides is value and what you get out of things and following with what God is calling you to, knowing like, so I don't work for money, I work for God. And God provides in the process of all of that. And so, we did go through a time where we had to trust that God was going to cover us for our needs. There were times where we were like really struggling financially, but still every day knowing I am exactly where God has called me to be today. Okay, then keep going.
Faithfully stepping forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And so the thing is, I think anybody who's an entrepreneur knows that you need to go into it with the mindset knowing you're going to put more value in than you are able to get out for a time. It's the same with like when you have children. The demand that having children has is just, it's such a high demand, especially the first couple of years where it's like they are attached to you and everything you do, you have to consider them, like the demand is so high. But then it does come to a point where it starts to grow and then it starts to actually
doing things on its own.
Yeah, yeah. And starts to pay back some, right? And so we have started to turn that corner where we are starting to see some value coming back to us in a way that does pay our bills.
That's great.
So that's helpful.
That's great. Well, in the industry, we do need what you guys are doing, so we appreciate it. We'll consider it mission work for now, and maybe some of our tithing can go to support this podcast at some point.
Well, and there have been people from other countries that like they don't have the money to necessarily purchase our education or services or whatever. But I do tell them, listen to the podcast because you can listen to the podcast for free and you're going to learn stuff. And so it is a great resource for people that don't necessarily have the money to buy the education or the mentorship.
100%.
There's still value with the podcast.
Yeah, you can listen to this podcast. You can listen to 99 previous episodes, and you've gone through a graduate level class in filmmaking for sure.
Well, it's great how much contrast there is from one guest to the next.
The variety.
The variety of information. It's all very informative and very inspirational, and each episode is so different from the last.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm reminded of, I used to listen to Brian Baumgartner's podcast about his experience on The Office. He played Kevin on The Office. And he would interview everybody from, one of the writers of The Office to the boom operator.
Right.
And I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to know about filmmaking from every perspective because that's what wisdom is being able to get an objective consideration on something from all points of view and then developing your point of view from that. So you guys are bringing in all these filmmakers from all these different points of view, both as just the humans, but also in their role in the filmmaking process. And so that's what really helps us all derive some wisdom from that. So I want to talk definitely about what's going on with the Faith and Family Filmmakers Association in 2025 and moving forward. But there's just one thing I want to step back to because we had such a great time in the last episode. We did not get to cover everything that I wanted to cover. I feel like I was rushing to the end of it. And there was kind of a giant deal here because, Jaclyn, you wrote and published a book very recently that I think we need to spend some time talking about.
Well, yeah, in the midst of all of these things that we were talking about that we were developing, one of the other things that I was told would be super beneficial is to write a book. And I thought, what in the world am I going to write a book about? I don't want to write a book. I want to write movies.
Yeah, right.
I never really had it in my mind that I wanted to write a book. I mean, there's just so many words, every page, just words, paragraphs. I like white.
Yeah, but
on
at
the
least with
page.
writing a book, you get to commit the cardinal sin of screenwriting and you get to just lather it in exposition.
It's true. It is true. And I do actually specifically say, although this is on the nose, for the sake of clarity, I will say.
Exposition is fine in a novel.
Yes, yes. Well, it wasn't a novel, actually.
Or, I'm sorry, a nonfiction.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. So the thing is that when I finally figured out what I wanted to write about, then it came so quickly to me. I think that's where story development or clarity on a project, all of those things, it's just so valuable. So what I realized was I am the type of person where whenever I learn something, I try to use it in as many aspects of my life as possible. And I realized that learning how to write a movie, like just all the skills that comes with screenwriting, I actually realized a lot of things that I could apply to my life and a lot of things that applied to my walk with God.
Okay.
And so the book is called In the Beginning, Middle, and End.
Yeah.
A Screenwriter's Observations of Life, Character, and God. So what I do is I break down a lot of storytelling techniques, but then I also equate it to, okay, now God is the author and you are the character in his story that he is writing. But now that you understand the role and responsibility of the author and his intentions, it puts you in a different position to respond to it. So I'll give you one example here. When I talk about my responsibility to write a villain or an adversary, right? Any scriptwriter will tell you it's super important that your adversary be strong and be formidable and be actually stronger than your hero. because then that's going to really up the stakes and increase the odds against our hero. So you want to put them up against something that is very difficult to defeat. Okay, so you think about that. Yes, we have an enemy of our soul, or maybe there's situations in our lives that seem insurmountable, like it's bigger than we are. It is. It just is. But going back as the author, when I write that villain or that adversary, it is no match for me, right? Like it is definitely bigger than my hero, and my hero cannot easily overcome it. But me, like I control it. Right? I'm the one that made it, right? And
as the author.
So I am fully aware of how that adversary thinks, what the goals are, and what the flaws or the weaknesses are. Like I'm in control of all of it, and nothing can happen without me allowing it to. And I know some people don't necessarily want to hear that because they might feel like God allowed things that were outside of his will to happen. But the thing is, it doesn't matter what has happened. God can turn everything to glorify him. He can make it happen. I know life gets hard sometimes, and we're up against really, really big adversaries, but they are absolutely no match for our author.
You just blew my mind with something else as well. And I'm not going to get into the Calvinist versus Arminian debate on this, but as an author, it frees your character, especially a villain character or a character that's outside of your personality, for you as an author to go, okay, my character has free will, just like God gave us free will, right? So we're fallen creatures, and sometimes we execute that free will in a manner that is not God-seeking. And so that's what our characters probably should be doing if we're reflecting reality.
Yeah.
So
actually, that is part of the book. I do talk about
I love it.
Giving free will to the characters. Because if you think about it, God does give us free will, right? We know that. But he also knows our character. And so he knows us better than we know ourselves. And so it's not that he has like ordained that we're going to do a thing so much as he knows our character and that our character is going to do the thing, right? And it's not to say that he doesn't give us specific roles and things like that. But I mean, if you think about Judas, like some people think Judas got a bad rap. He was chosen to be the bad guy. No, he actually was given an opportunity to change. Jesus told him right before he went and betrayed him, he gave him the warning. And Judas still went and did it. Like, how much more could God have done to give him the opportunity to change?
Right.
He chose not to.
Well, he could have even asked forgiveness and repented after he did it, like Peter.
Exactly. And so he was actually even denying God's goodness when he did that.
Character exploration.
Yes.
It's amazing. So, well, look, go get the book. You need to go get this book.
It's on Amazon.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Can you buy it from your own website too?
Actually, I do have a website, jaclynwhitt.com. And if you go there, you can download a free chapter. The chapter that I have available for download right now is on miracles. Okay, I'll just give you a quick tidbit on that one. In the film industry, the rule is one miracle per story. Okay, as soon as you get into multiple miracles, then people are like, this is cheesy. And the only way you can get away with it is if it is actually based on a true story, right? And those things actually happened. Otherwise, people will be like, no, you cannot have a major coincidence or magic or a miracle. You cannot have more than one big thing in a movie. Well, God does not have to adhere to Hollywood ideals for screenwriting. And so he is fully capable and interested in giving us miracles on a regular basis. And so then I go into explaining how to recognize miracles, how to respond in miracles, and I give a part of my own story of a miracle that I experienced in my life. So I'll encourage people, if you want to get into understanding the character of God from a perspective of miracles, go read that chapter.
JaclynWhitt.com. I always encourage anyone, if it's possible, if the filmmaker or the author, any kind of an artist is offering their product on their own website, I encourage people, I know it's not as easy as the one-click Amazon, but that artist won't have to split the cost with Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos has plenty of money, and so it's always good to go buy directly from the source when you can. Okay, so go get the book now. Let's get into it. Let's really get into it. What's next this year for the Faith and Family Filmmakers Association? Because if I know you guys, you're not sitting on your laurels. You're not going to say we've innovated all we're going to innovate. I think it's about to be a big year for you guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think everything we've done to this point was just like setting the foundation so that we could start to really build, which is where we're going in 2025. Jeff, it looks like you have something to say.
They're
so
both
go ahead.
vibrating, going, I want to tell people, I want to tell people.
It's so true.
Well, I'll just point out that our website very soon will have an events calendar for the events of the association, classes, festivals, workshops, table reads, those types of things, but also other events in the faith-based industry. So that's something you can look for to be informed about what's coming up over the next week, month, and year.
So I actually have basically really freaked Jeff out because I think a month or two ago, I had like this download of all of these ideas, this huge brainstorm. And I went to Jeff, I'm like, we could do this and we could do this and we could do this. And I mean, we've been married like over 11 years now where he knows when I have ideas, he's like, okay.
Oh boy, here we go.
Sure.
Let's implement them all now.
Yeah, I'm never short for ideas. And so believe it or not.
This is the same thing when a director goes to a producer. All right, check this out, right?
Right, yeah. So believe it or not, all of the things that we have done, that was not all of the ideas that we had.
I can believe
those were just the ones where we're like, okay, that'll rise to the top. We'll pick those ones. So here's what we've got coming in 2025, and we are still working out the details for how it plays out, but it will be coming. We are going to be having a pitch festival and a demo reel festival adding to our list of festivals. And the reason why is because our whole goal is to raise the standard, right? For production, for value, for quality. We want faith-based films to become the films that people want to watch. We want to raise that standard so high that the quality is amazing, that people want to work with the Christians who are like part of what we're doing, like because they're thinking like, these are the ones that are the best at their job. Like they're just fantastic, high quality, high caliber, like. So we thought, how do we educate people in a way that makes it fun? Because I totally believe that when you have fun education, you just sink into it even deeper, right? Like think back to when you had that teacher that was just, they really loved their job and the way that it made you feel when you were learning and you loved it, right? So that's where the festivals are coming from, because we figure we can have some friendly competition and encourage each other in that process.
And we're also going to include education on those things. So training for pitch materials. And of course, pitching includes everything from log lines to pitch decks to
proof of concept.
Yeah.
Trailers, like anything that you would need to pitch at any stage of the process. So sometimes you're pitching ideas, you know, just to sell your script. And sometimes you're pitching ideas to get funding. And sometimes you're pitching to get distribution. You know, every stage of the process, there's a reason to pitch. And so why don't you become the best at pitching your project? And so, we do have the opportunities to have that friendly competition, but we also have the opportunities for people to learn from the best so that they can up their skills and then submit to the competition.
Yeah, we'll bring in experts in those different areas so that they do learn from the best.
There's so many parts of the filmmaking industry that even sort of experienced filmmakers, once you get into it, you realize, oh my gosh, there's things I'd never thought of. I thought I could just write a movie and I'll send it to some guy and he'll say, this is the greatest thing I've ever read. It's the wonderful first draft.
Give you money.
Here's $20 million. Go make the next War Room or whatever. And it doesn't work that way at all. But I love that you guys are so focused on that development process of not just scripts, of not just filmmakers, but the industry as a whole. Because, look, we've earned a reputation over the past 25 years. Our industry has. Whether it's fair or not, I don't know. We'll see. But we've earned a reputation of Christian films being lower quality production. But I think even worse than that is we've earned a reputation of having lower quality storytelling. I think that outside of us,
lazy writing.
I
think there's been that accusation.
They say that we're preaching a sermon with a thinly veiled story on top of it that just gives us an excuse to preach a sermon. And sometimes that's a valid point.
Fortunately, we're seeing lots of examples of where that's changing. So that's a good thing. It's a positive move.
Yeah, it is already changing. But I think that if we can create more opportunity for people to learn, because I don't think that people want to fall into that category. I think that people do want to have such a compelling story that also has a message, that they want to bring that value but they don't necessarily know how, and they don't necessarily have, the opportunity to ask someone to call them out on something. Because sometimes if you don't know who actually to ask for feedback, and you ask somebody who is a cheerleader instead of somebody who is going to really rip it apart, then you go into a project thinking that you've got gold, and it's fool's gold.
It is. I've seen it so many times. I mentioned that story last time of feeling so bad for this girl who was arguing with this industry expert about the notes that he gave. But that's a mindset. We just have to turn that mindset around and let people understand that development, all the different development opportunities you provide, it's not a hit to our ego. We're not even supposed to have an ego. It's ways we can get better.
Yeah.
Who knew that as a writer or a director, you have to actually be really good at presenting and really good at understanding the marketplace and how your idea is going to fit into the marketplace in a way that's going to get your investors their money back, all these things.
Especially since a lot of writers are introverts and they're like, wait,
Right.
I have to go in front of people and talk?
Yep.
What?
That's very difficult for that introverted type who are, like you say, some of the most brilliant writers. Yet another way we can improve ourselves as filmmakers is by expanding our network. And you guys are offering these monthly networking calls that I think are invaluable.
Right? Oh, man. So as I mentioned—
That's coming up in the new year.
Yeah. As I mentioned, like part of what Jeff and I did with being entrepreneurs is we went to networking events live, but we also have participated in masterminds and other networking calls and stuff. So I've been in several and I've learned from a lot of them. And I've kind of taken tools from all of them where I've realized, okay, this would be super valuable for our group that we're working with, our association, with where we want to help lead them and the opportunities that we want to provide for them. So a monthly call where people can join, and the goal is to meet as many people as possible. And it will vary at times, right? Sometimes the goal will be to meet as many people as possible, as in there'll be breakout rooms and a very specific way that each person introduces themselves so that there's that opportunity for everybody to speak. Because think about when you go to live events, who is it that gets the most attention? It's the people who have the charisma and the courage to talk, and the introvert is kind of off to the side, right? And so in this situation, they're not going to be left behind. They're going to have their opportunity, as everybody does, to introduce themselves. And there's a specific way that the introduction will be done. So nobody's going to feel like, I don't know how to do this, right? Because we've kind of created this opportunity where you just can't fail, right? I love no-fail ways of learning. So yeah, we've created that. And then there'll be other times where it'll actually be more of a mastermind kind of thing, where yes, there'll be breakout rooms, but they'll be purposeful, where it's like, okay, now you're going to go and discuss this thing, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the next part to build onto that. So we're not only facilitating opportunities for meeting a lot of people, we're also facilitating opportunities to learn from each other as we are pursuing things. So let's say, just for example, if we're talking about how to market ourselves and become more known, right? Okay, so let's say we were talking about podcast guesting. We would lead people through the process of how you would actually go about doing that. Okay, so you go talk to your group on what would be your specific signature topic, because that's one of the things that you need to know, that when you go onto a podcast, you have to have your signature topic that you talk about and your main points that you discuss. And like, that's just a freebie for everybody there. When you want to go on a podcast, you better be prepared, right? So we can go.
And if you're a
that.
filmmaker with a film that's going to do anything, you better be prepared to go on podcasts.
Yes, exactly. And so then how do you break down how you're going to talk about things? And quite often you want to give your questions to the host, please ask me these questions. And that's actually a good thing. It helps them do their job better. And then you're prepared for whatever the conversation is going to be. So just as an example, when we go through the masterminds with those, we can work together, we can practice, we can give each other the feedback and be like, oh, I really like how you introduce yourself that way, or I really like that phrasing that you used for that. You should keep that, use that. So we can help each other to be prepared for those opportunities when they come.
We'll have guests at times bring in expertise to share, and there'll be some variety there, but it's going to be a great opportunity to meet, network, learn, and combine it all together. Content Christian Media Conference is hosting a one-day event on Monday, February 24th at Prestonwood Baptist Church in Plano, Texas. It's one amazing day of fellowship, networking, screenings, panels, and inspirational keynotes. There'll be breakouts on filmmaking, storytelling, writing, distribution, and more, with lunch included. It's perfectly timed, just before the start of NRB. Register at christianmediaconference.com. You can find the link in the show notes. Register now and get early bird pricing until December 31st. Join us for Content One Day Christian Media Summit, Monday, February 24th, for filmmakers, actors, screenwriters, podcasters, authors, distributors, and you.
So you can do that live, and then there's also going to be some online course content. Now, I'm going to open this up with a quick story of embarrassing myself. The first time I ever walked on set to direct a, 7-figure budget film, I had only done smaller stuff. And so none of the producers thought it would be necessary to prepare me for what that experience is like. So I didn't know really what the first AD did. I didn't really know what a line producer did. I didn't know how the categories break down on set, who works under who works over who are the departments. I happened to be an actor, so that's the only reason I was able to kind of fake the fact that I didn't know. But I know on my first day, I thought I was the director and the first AD. And so I called, action and cut, and I'm telling everybody. And the first AD had to come over to me and go, sir, we'll handle all that, okay? Which is both embarrassing and freeing. So what I like about the online course content is that you have from writers, from producers, from the first AD, hopefully from the boom op. I want to hear from the boom op and everybody about what their role is, so that when you go on set, no matter what your role is, you understand everybody else's role, which is invaluable.
We talked a fair amount in the last episode about the Producers Mentorship Program.
Yep.
We also will be providing courses for screenwriting. We started with live online courses, of course, that Jaclyn taught, and she's, in fact, in the middle of a Screenwriting Foundations course right now. But we will have online evergreen courses that people can take at any time. We have a very experienced first assistant director developing this course with Jaclyn. And sometime in the next few months, that will be available. Just like the producers program, it is do at your own pace. So for the producers program, while it's a year long, you can start at any point in the year, join in with the regular mentorship calls and stuff that are going on, but do that course material online at your own pace. As we continue to build out that course content, we'll add more subjects and more areas of filmmaking to that.
Well, everybody wants to be the writer-director, but as a writer-director myself, I would highly encourage anyone and everyone to take the producer's course, take the first AD course. It'll make you better as a writer-director. But if you're a person who is interested in being a first AD, understand this. As a director, I find that first AD to be the most valuable person on set. For me, that person takes away all of my stress and worry. So I love that you're doing that.
Well, I know that, but I also don't know what the first AD does. So if I had some kind of opportunity to say, hey, I'd like to do that on this film, absolutely no. I absolutely could not do it because I don't know what the role entails.
Yeah, that role is all about the person who is creative, but also is good at managing details.
Yeah.
That's that first AD, whereas the director is just sitting off looking into space and answering questions about the story. So, all right, Jaclyn said something a minute ago that reminds me that you guys are from Canada. She says, we've been there, and there's very little Canadian accent comes out until I hear the bean, which is interesting to me. As a Southerner, I'd say I've been there. But you guys live in Mexico now,
Yes.
and so you're actually going to have a writer's retreat down in good old Mexico.
Yes.
That's fun. We're really excited about this. It's a year away. I'll let Jaclyn talk more about it in a second. It's
About it. Okay, there's another way.
There you go.
This is probably our first
I think
announcement,
so.
to be honest. And yet we don't have it online yet. We don't have all of the details worked out, but we're aiming for next October,
Nice.
probably towards the end, maybe the beginning of November, but right in that window.
Guys, that's a great time of the year to be in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
And we are excited about it. We're really excited about it. Partially, well, I'll tell you, one of the differences for this retreat is it is not at a resort.
Nope.
Often people go to conferences, corporations and groups and retreats. They go to a fancy resort and it may be, $5,000 a week or more or whatever.
But you spend most of your time in a boardroom.
Well, not only that, a resort in Mexico is probably not a lot different than a resort in some other part of the world. And a resort experience is a valid
Sure.
way to
yeah.
get away.
It could be fun.
But what we're offering is a cultural
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Oh, I like that
So
better.
we're doing this retreat in our hometown, which is a small town of 6,000. We'll do day trips. We'll have a lot of fun, and we'll get to visit and see and experience cultural things, but
Not as
not
a tourist.
No. Well, you'll be a tourist, but not in the tourist areas.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, a writer wants the closest to the most authentic
Uh-huh.
experience they can get. So this is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll let Jaclyn talk more about the retreat itself.
Okay. So basically, it comes down to 6 full days of writing, but it's going to be like more of a 9-day event, 8 or 9 day. Because when people arrive, we're not writing on the first day. People are going to arrive. We're going to go have a bit of an adventure. Then the next day, we get down to work. And so those 2 days, we're going to be doing story development. And I have a very specific method that I use so that at the end of that second day, you are going to have your outline ready to go, ready to write. And it's going to be something that will actually work because I'll be there to mentor people to make sure that, yes, things are lining up and they're in the right place and all of that. And then because of all of that work, we're going to take a day off. And then we will go and have an adventure for 1 full day. And then we're going to come back. And then it's going to be down to business where we're going to be writing. And so for people who are somewhat experienced as writers, they can actually probably get their first draft written in those 4 days. I mean, if you think you can write 25 pages in a day, right? You sit down, write 10 to 12 pages, take a break.
If you're properly structured.
Well, yes, if you already
that's-
have all of that story development done. And also because you don't have to worry about all of the other household stuff. Like you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about laundry. You don't have to worry about cooking or any of that. Like we provide all of that. It's all taken care of so you can just focus on writing.
Yep.
And so
Mhm.
we've got 4 days set aside for that. And also I'm there the whole time. If anybody needs help or they get stuck or they need to rework anything, I can help with that. But at the end of the 4th day, you've got your first draft written and you go home with a solid first draft, knowing that your story has legs. And of course, you're going to work on rewrites. So I'm not
Yeah.
saying you're going home with something that's ready to pitch. It's not even ready for
Certainly
festivals.
not ready to produce.
No, but you need to start with a solid first draft in order to really move forward in developing that script into something that is ready to be filmed.
Amen on that. I have a question for you, Jaclyn. You're talking about helping people with the structure because I find that's probably for inexperienced writers or even young writers. I find that's the hardest thing. They have good ideas and good concepts, but putting them to structure is the toughest. You talked about an outline. Do you work with outlines or do you kind of work with Snyder's beats and develop the beat sheet?
Yeah.
Or what's your methodology?
I have a process that you start with very specific points. It's not a lot of them. It's just very specific points. Once you've got those ones sorted out, then you move to the next level, which is going to work out more of the points. And when I say points, I mean plot points. Because
the beats,
but you have to have certain ones working first in order to know that your story is going to have a solid why, right? Because when you watch something, you're like, okay, I watched a lot of things happen. It's like I watched a series of events, but why does any of it matter?
Yeah. Why
Right?
did the hero go on this journey?
So we start with making sure that you've got that why solid, and then we build out the details and the events that happen around that bring it out. So then you make sure that you've got the value in your story so that it can hit your heart. If you want it to be funny, it's going to have those moments where it's going to be funny, and you got those moments where they want to cry, and and even knowing what you want those to be from the beginning. So for example, if I know I want this moment in the story where I want people to cry because it's just so beautiful and heart-wrenching, then I know I have to bring a level of laughter at the beginning in order to start working with those emotions. And so a lot of my approach also is understanding how emotions work and how to lead an audience through that journey of emotions in a way that feels satisfying. So yeah, I start with some very specific few points and then we build out from there. And by the end of the second day, we've got a solid outline ready to write. And I've worked with other people before that they always say to me like, wow, you're so fast. Cause like I can draft this kind of stuff. It doesn't even take me 2 days to do it. I could probably do it in 1 now because I know how to do this and because I'll be there to lead people through it. And because people will be able to focus on specifically the writing part of it and not have to deal with all of the other details of life. They can focus and get the work done. But then, of course, we have to go have fun.
You have to have fun to inspire yourself. I can probably write a draft in a month, but that's because I'm doing an hour today, 30 minutes tomorrow. And I don't think that's as high quality, like you say, to sit down for hours at a time with no distractions and be able to actually write. I can see why you could totally get a much better.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to both, because sometimes you might need to think a little bit longer on something. And so sometimes it does help to have some time in between. However, I know for me, if I set the time aside, I could develop and write a first draft within a week to a week and a half.
Yep.
But that's because, like, I don't want people to go into it thinking that they're going to, have that and juggle all of life, children
100%.
and whatever, because I don't do any of that. Like, this is full time for me. So when I set that time aside, I don't have kids. And I tell Jeff, like, I need you to take care of food and whatever. Like, don't even ask me what I want. Just make it happen. Because my brain is.
I'll see you next
yes,
Tuesday,
like, my brain is so focused on this story and I'm just so in it, right? But yeah, then I can get it done. And so with creating that environment for the writers when they come visit us, then they have that opportunity. But we do have that day of adventure in between just to allow the brain to kind of settle, because all of that hard work at the beginning in those first 2 days, you kind of need a break. Then when you come back, you're ready to write.
Well, it'll create kind of a suction. You'll notice on the first 2 days of story development and take a day off, all of a sudden your mind will just almost like have a scaffolding. And during that break, whoosh, all your ideas will just suck in and stick to the scaffolding for sure. And basically what I'm hearing from this is that, look, screenwriting is a craft. And the beauty of a craft, that's part art, part science, okay? And creative people, it's like we have the art part down pretty well, but what we struggle with is that scaffolding, is that science, is that technique, is that system, is the process, is the structure. And that's what you kind of help give them, that so then they can kind of hang meat on the skeleton, so to speak.
Yeah. And I mean, I can just imagine like the friendships and the bonds that are going to come from it when, people come and share an adventure together. And then I think it could be life-changing. Like Jeff and I, we talk about it all the time where we're like, oh, we can't wait to show them this. And we're going to have like a Mexican backyard party and like we're going to bring mariachis. And like that's a real thing here. It happens all the time. So it's totally normal. So, we want to create this very authentic opportunity to visit Mexico and see what it's like. And it's very safe here. Like we have no fear. This area where we live is a very safe area.
Yeah, I just want to talk for a moment again also about that cultural part of it, because, you may be someone who has visited the resorts before and the beach areas, and that's cool. But if you have ever thought you would like to experience the real life, the small town culture, we're just excited to share our little town with you. And much of it will happen here. We have friends who are helping to plan this. We'll have locals who are catering the food. We'll experience, local
driving
cuisine.
Through the mountains.
Oh,
the Mexican jungle mountains. Like it's
come on.
Even just walking through our little town is an experience.
Yeah.
I mean, and we will see some ruins, some pyramids. We will go to a Pueblo Mágico, a magic town that's designated such because of something that's really special, historical beauty. And we will have some of those experiences that are outside just, experiencing a small town. But that whole experience will be a cultural experience, and it will be all inclusive. So when you register, from your transportation from the airport to your return to the airport, meals, admission to things, all of that will be included. So you don't have to worry about how much money you're going to spend when you're here.
I love that. Well, speaking of safety, look, I've been blessed. I've spent time on every continent other than Antarctica on this planet. And one thing I found out is that if there's dangerous places, they're typically located around big cities. But I don't care what the country is. If you're in a small town or somewhere rural, it's almost the same everywhere. People are lovely. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's safe. It's where my kids could run around. So the other thing is I got this vision. I cannot wait for you guys, or maybe I can, to host the podcast in a couple of years in which the origin story of a film that's about to be released theatrically began in Mexico at your retreat. That's going to be fun.
That does sound amazing.
Right?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm so looking forward to that.
Hey, that's the vision. You got to have the vision of the end to get there, right? So I think that's the vision for what this retreat should be, is one of you is going, or maybe
I'll
more.
make it a race. Who's going to be the
That's right.
first?
We're going to race to the theaters, race to the theaters. Well, not even the theaters. Look, if you make a movie and you get it done, you are elite. And I don't care if it's a feature film on your iPhone that people love, or if it's a, $1 million budget. If you finish a film, you're already in the elite company. So I think you guys are going to help them get there for sure.
We all know God as our King, our Creator, our Father, and friend. But how many of us know Him as our author? While you may have considered this before, have you considered what it means? How do authors think? What would they want their characters to know? In my book, In the Beginning, Middle, and End, A Screenwriter's Observations of Life, Character, and God, I explore exactly that. God, the author. You, the character. I share my insights and observations of how I see this beautiful dynamic of author and character and the journey they take together. In the Beginning, Middle, and End. Book bundles are available for the holiday season at the bottom of the homepage at fafassociation.com. Save up to 25% when you purchase multiple copies. Link in the show notes.
What inspired you guys to do all of this? You're taking on a big role in this industry because you know these are roles that need to be filled. Filmmakers need development. The industry needs development. Filmmakers need a good community that we can all come together with. But what inspired you guys to have such a giant vision?
I will say, to start the answer to that question, that the inspiration for all of these things have rolled themselves out incrementally. Like, we didn't have any idea when we started that we would be doing all these things, but it just revealed itself to us, or God revealed it to us as we went on.
He kind of held back at the beginning because that would have been crazy to tell us.
It would have been overwhelming.
At the beginning, I want you to move to Mexico and change the film industry. What?
While you're there, I need you to build an ark.
Yeah.
All right.
So basically, when we came here, it was the intention that I would be able to pursue writing full time, and then we would start this online screenwriting academy, which would be probably part time for me, and Jeff would manage the business. And then it was just, I can't help but have ideas. And so I was like, oh, you know what else they need? You know what else will bring them value? And so, it just, then we decided, you know what, we need to just be in this full time. And as soon as we dove in 100%, then, that's where that clarity of vision started to come. And it's funny because when I started to have that, understanding of like, well, I think we should support the entire faith-based industry, it kind of seemed like a really crazy thing. And like, I didn't even want to say it out loud for a while because it just kind of felt like, am I thinking too highly of myself?
Well, I will step in there and say, in just about any area of what we do, except for screenwriting, we don't consider ourselves experts.
No.
We don't consider ourselves experts in producing. We rely on an expert, and we bring in experts in the different areas, just like the podcast.
Yeah.
We're not here to tell everybody how great we are or how great of things we've done. We bring in other people to do that. Not with that attitude, of course, but there are so many people with so much expertise that can be shared, and we just want to facilitate that.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I think that's a great place to end. Is there anything else you guys want to add to what the future of the Faith and Family Filmmakers Association is going to entail?
I think God only knows, to be honest.
Nice. Blessings from God is a good way to start and a good way to end. It always is, with the Alpha and the Omega. Well, guys, this is very exciting. 2025 and beyond is going to be huge. I encourage everybody who's listening right now, become a member, join this community, join this group, utilize the resources. It doesn't matter where you are in the process. Look to actors. Even the most experienced actors, when they're not acting and being paid to act, they're in acting classes because there's always something to learn. Always. And so even if you consider yourself an experienced filmmaker, I would dive into as many of these classes and networks and workshops and maybe spend 9 days on a Mexican beach with our good friends, Geoffrey and Jaclyn Whitt. So thanks once again so much for agreeing to appear on your own podcast, the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast.
And thanks for joining our team.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing. You've said several times throughout, and it's okay, you guys and what you guys are doing, and you have to change this because from now on it's what we're doing.
You're part of our team.
And you called yourself a guest host, and that's not the right word either. Now you're a host.
I'm a co-host.
Yes. You're a host.
Yes.
I'm an all shucks guy. This ain't about me. This ain't about me. This is about you guys.
No. But we
thank you.
Welcome, and we appreciate you. That's why we invited you. And we are really looking forward to what you bring to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
And you are one of the hosts. You're no longer a guest host. So thanks so much.
I have been, I'm a made man now. That's exciting. The sword on each shoulder. I appreciate that very much. We're going to have a lot of fun. That I can promise.
Thanks for listening to the Faith and Family Filmmakers podcast. If you've been enjoying this podcast, take a moment to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. And if you'd like to support the production of this podcast, you can leave a tip at faffpodcast.com/support. Bringing filmmakers together for faith and family.